This is a public...
Screens out here.
Sorry?
These ones aren't on.
Are they coming on?
They are coming on, yes. Okay.
All right. Item number 4 is a public hearing. This is a preliminary plat for Mount Saratoga, Quail Hill, Plot A, located approximately 1700 West Pony Express Parkway.
Okay. Dave, are you going to run the slide? I don't know where the pointer is. All right, this is located in the Mount Saratoga development. It's just off of Pony Express Parkway at about 1700 West. Next slide, please. Here is the preliminary plat, and there are 30 lots, I believe, and their open space is within Mount Saratoga, but not within the plat. There's other plats associated with their open space. If you could go to the next slide. This is an open space exhibit. In the Mount Saratoga development, there are specific amenities and points required and open space percentages. The total open space within the development is 30%. And so what I wanted to have them accomplish with this particular plat, even though there's no open space in the plat, that they also provide 30% open space with this particular plat. And they do have another plat that's straight open space. So what you're seeing here is a diagram. The gray area is showing that plat. It's a large detention basin with a trail around the perimeter. There will also be a trail along Pony Express Parkway. And then the dashed red lines that you're seeing in this exhibit are trails on both sides of Mount Saratoga Boulevard. So those plats will need to be recorded prior to or simultaneous with Plat A. If you could go to the next slide. These are the landscape plans, so the detention basin that I mentioned, the Pony Express Parkway Trail, and then trails along Mount Saratoga Boulevard. And the next slide, please. And then another piece, the eastern corner of that detention basin and the trails associated with that, and then the last slide, and then the trails and the landscaping along Mount Saratoga Boulevard. And then next slide, please. These are the recommended, this is the recommended motion. Staff is recommending approval subject to these conditions. That the open space map and table does have some numbers we are still working on. So number 4 recommends that final approval be delegated to staff. And then number 5 is related to the other plats that should be recorded prior to this plat. They have not yet identified mailbox locations, so we would like to see that on their plan set. And then any other conditions that are recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you for your presentation. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come and join us? And would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Just making sure your mic's on. Okay.
Steve Maddox, Edge Homes, Draper, Utah.
Hi, Steve. Did you want to add anything to the presentation tonight?
Yeah, 2 things. I'm glad Sarah understands what we're doing because I don't. This has been a project that I think I presented with 4 of you, Mrs. Steele as well, about 2.5 years ago. We have completed the water tank, which will augment some of the restraints that we've had as a city, and we have begun and are completed about 50% of Mount Saratoga Boulevard and also a continuation of Talus Ridge. So we are well underway on our infrastructure. Mark's not here tonight. The inspectors out in the field have been incredible to work with, and we've made great progress. So we are well on our way with the backbone infrastructure.
All right, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing for item number 4. If anybody would like to come forward and state your opinions or questions for item number 4, we invite you at this time. Okay, given that there isn't any, we'll close the public hearing for item number 4, and we'll open it up to the Planning Commission for comments.
I just have one. In this landscape plan, they also call out the weed barrier, and is that something that we need to put in a motion to have you as the staff do as a minor amendment to their plan?
So weed barrier, even though we took it out of our code that you could do that, developers can do weed barrier or pre-emergent. They were in the process of we were processing the community plan while those things were happening, and their community plan has a requirement for weed barrier. They do want to come back and amend that.
Can that be done with staff, since that's kind of a minor thing?
Sure, yeah. Well, not necessarily. So our code dictates what's a minor and what's a major, and a development standard is a major amendment. So if that falls under the category of development standard, then it does have to come back as a major amendment. They do have other ones they want to do. So signage, they do want to change their signage, and some fencing. They do want to request in the next, no, sorry, it wasn't this one. The lots that back Mount Saratoga Boulevard, they would like privacy fences rather than semi-private. So there's some other things they want to request amendments to that will be major amendments, so it won't be just for weed barrier.
Okay, should we put that in the motion, or is that left unsaid?
Well, it would be helpful that if you put in the motion that if the community plan is amended, that they could amend those plans, sheets.
Oh, okay, I get you.
For her. Yes, go ahead.
I'm good. I'm good.
Ask, okay, is finding, in the staff report, is finding 2 and 3, finding 3 redundant, since like finding 2 has everything that finding 3 has plus more?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Almost. Is the applicant okay with all the conditions in the planning and in the planning staff and city engineer's report?
Yes.
I want to ask, how many acres are in this application? Because we have 3.94 acres, it's 26 lots in the engineering's report. Then it says 4.87 acres, or 15 acres, 30 lots on the first page of the staff report.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll have to look at the plat to be sure. Let's see here. I think the reason we're seeing different numbers here is we have 2 very similar reports. We might have not corrected all the numbers from the 2 separate reports, and then we have a plat by itself without open space, and then we have additional plats that have open space. So I think that's probably what's going on with all the numbers. The plat will tell you exactly how many acres are in this particular plat.
Okay, yeah, because
So it looks like this plat has 3.94 acres.
okay, yeah, because since you make some corrections on open space later on, I guess you have to have a standard number, but the engineering report says 4.87.
And where was the 15? Where was that number?
On the very first page of the staff report.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. We'll get that.
Did you see that in the executive summary? It says, on executive summary, it says 15.8 acres for Plat A.
There's 2 Plat A's, so let's see here.
Then right above it, under the summary, it says parcel number and size 4.87 acres
Okay.
on the same page.
Yeah, I see all that. Thank you.
Okay.
Those are errors.
Yeah. Oh, and then the 3.94 acres also. So does the applicant have a plan to meet the city's mailbox requirements then?
Yes, we at Talos Ridge had put them where we thought would be prudent for the neighborhood and have removed them and replaced them. So we are seeking staff's approval for a prominent location, a safe location, and we'll do that when we are instructed to do so.
Okay.
That's in item 6 of the conditions too.
Oh, okay. And then 1918 signs, I guess we talked about this. I was going to ask about the condition approval, so Commissioner Steele covered that. Same with the fencing, got that already.
Yeah, but I don't know if the fencing is listed in the conditions or the findings.
Oh, that's
Is
it.
is it wrapped up in there?
It's the next
Yeah,
one.
that's right.
It's
My
the
question
next
was,
one,
does
the
a
amendments.
request for a condition, does this require a condition for approval? That was my question on the fencing.
No, they would have to come back and request an amendment to the community plan. So right now, nothing in the community plan addresses fencing, so it defaults to our city code. However, they can ask for something different than the city code through their community plan, so they would have to request that.
So this
And then-
decision doesn't address that.
Don't
No.
have to worry about the planning.
No,
commission.
I'm just letting you know that you'll see a request for that coming forward.
With the weed abate, or the weed
Barrier.
barrier,
And
too.
the signage.
And the signage, okay.
The-
All at
the
once.
Weed barrier comes later, too?
Weed barrier, signage, and fencing will all come, you'll see a request to change those things.
This will all be an amendment on the community.
Which
plan.
motion should the same motion saying that with a community plan amendment, that the noted sheets may be amended by applicant?
If you were to say, subject to approval of a community plan amendment, you support those changes, that'd be fine.
So I believe this development has an HOA. I was wondering if a applicant's development doesn't have an HOA, then how are detention basins and park strips maintained? Is that something that the city just pays for? Because we've had some residents saying that they want to see more developments without HOA. And I just thought, okay, if that's the case, then what happens to these park strips and detention basins?
We've been having ongoing discussions for about 2 years now on that particular topic, and we do not yet have a solution. So right now, the city only takes parks that are on our Parks Master Plan and that are 5 acres and larger. And so if you have a development that has a detention basin but can't provide a large city park, they have to form an HOA. So we are working at possible solutions, but we don't have a solution. Some of those solutions can be citywide regional detention basins. That would take a huge redesign and look at infrastructure throughout the city. There are some other options we're looking at. It's something the council is focusing on. It's probably going to take some action on their part.
Thank you. And then, will the applicant meet the landscaping requirements for the detention basin area?
Yes.
That's the 3 trees per acre?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
again, these are, this is administrative, so I have to ask these questions. Is the city okay with the anticipated fiscal impact of the open space maintenance?
Yes, that's already been established in the community plan, what areas will become city. So the city's already anticipating it.
Okay. And then, what are those red bubbles around some of the diagrams?
There are comments that we're working through.
So they don't pertain, as far as our recommendation for approval, that it's not something that we have to worry about then?
No, it's not. They were already on the plans I had, so that's why they got included.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
What about the blue bubble?
That
So
one
I'm-
is,
I'm serious. What's the George Drive? Why is that circled? I didn't see
I
anything.
actually don't know. So we have multiple people working on these plans, engineering, planning, they're engineers, and so we require bubbles to identify changes and areas that we're working on.
Looks like a quarry or some kind of gravel area or something.
Which particular blue bubble?
What is it, the cobble?
It is Mount Saratoga, the Ridge Plat A, Exhibit 2.
Those will come
Oh.
off. The purpose of those are for us to track changes as they come through the review process. Those will come off.
All right. Any other comments from Planning Commission? Okay, you've addressed all of my concerns. Good job. Very thorough. I'll entertain a motion.
She wrote it down, right?
Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for approval of Quail Hill Plat A preliminary plat located at approximately 1700 West Pony Express Parkway with the findings and conditions below. With the added condition that subject to a community plan amendment, the noted sheets may be amended by applicant.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? I have a question. So does that include the weed barrier, the mailboxes, the fencing, the trees, and the detention basin?
Yes.
All of that?
And there's some notes on trails, and if they come in with that also. It's just a kind of a...
Okay. Is that okay with the second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks for your time, Steve. Have a good evening.
We've got a second one.
He doesn't
Yep.
need to leave.
Oh,
The
you
very
just-
next
You just
one
make
is
yourself comfortable
very
right there. We'll bring in the cookie and hot chocolates in a minute. All right, let's go to item number 5. This is a public hearing, preliminary plat for Mount Saratoga Ridge Plat A, located approximately 1300 West Talus Ridge Boulevard. Edge Homes is the applicant. Sarah, time is yours.
Okay, so there you go, approximately 1300 West Talus Ridge Boulevard. So just west of the Talus Ridge development, but this is Mount Saratoga. So it's over the hill from the end of the development we were just looking at. If you want to go to the next slide. So here's the plat, and we just changed directions, just so you know. So north is to the edge of the page rather than the top. And so the main street, Talus Ridge Boulevard, is on one side of the page, kind of curving through the diagram. So what you're seeing here is another phase of the development. This is in a different village plan, but it's also Plat A, and there is some city open space and some HOA open space. So parcel B will be HOA, and that's the detention basin, and then parcel C will be native area, and that will be maintained by the city. And then you're seeing they'll also have an entry monument in this phase. And this plat has the open space. When we get to the open space diagram, which I think is the next slide. So this here, there's just some numbers that didn't get entered correctly that we need them to correct. And then they're counting trails in a plat. Kind of the gray area represents another plat, and they're counting trails from that. So they do have all the amenities and open space they need. We just need to work out the numbers on this particular sheet. And that's recommended that the final approval be delegated to staff. And then there's also some open space plans in here if you want to go to the next slide. So here's the native area in the detention basin that I mentioned, and there is an access road / trail through this particular area. And if you want to go to the next slide. And this is just the southern end of that landscaped area. And then the next slide. And so here's the monument sign. As I mentioned, they do want to come in and apply to amend this. This, however, it matches what's in the community plan except for that it's smaller. And if you want to go to the next slide. And then here's the recommended motion with very similar conditions to the one we just discussed.
Thank you for your presentation. Back to you, applicant. Steve, did you want to add
Edge
anything to
Homes, Draper, Utah, no comment.
No comment. All right, this is a public hearing, so we will open up public comment for item number 5. Given no comment, we'll close public comment, and we'll move on to the Planning Commission for comment. Good.
I'm good.
All right.
So some of these are going to be the exact same questions. So can applicant comply with all the conditions in this PC staff report?
Yes.
Okay. Is city okay with the financial impact, fiscal impact of maintaining the open space? Okay. Okay. So this question, it's about the pre-emergent amendment. So that's same as the other one,
Right.
which means we need to make a
another,
And then, let's see. On one of the, okay, so, I don't know what, it's, I go by the whole staff packet, so it's page 55 of that, but it's the one that shows the typical sit back. It's the diagram that shows, the diagram is really small. It shows a typical sit back and the public utility easement detail, and then it's got a column of bunch of numbers, the curve table, and then the notes. And then within the notes on page 17, I'm sorry, number 17 on the notes, it said that there are shallow sewer depths. Contractor shall verify sewer depths before excavating for basements. Homes with basements may not have sewer service available for basements. So if that's the case, will there be a notice to the potential buyer that their basement may not have sewer service?
Yeah, that will not be the case, meaning there will not be sewer restraints. In the event that we do hit that, we will put injector pumps in the basement, and we are the end user, the builder, and we would notify that and disclose.
Okay. So you don't anticipate?
We don't anticipate that.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Those sorts of notifications go on the plat, and so buyers are duly noticed via the plat.
Okay.
If it ended up on the, Steve's saying it's not going to be there, but I'm just saying if that were the case, it would be on the plat and they would be notified that way.
Okay. I've noticed that, I guess maybe it's for...
Where the notice is. Yeah, the note is on the plat.
Yeah, so it's on the plat, so the buyers are legally notified via that note.
Okay. So is this different than in the case, where we've often had like there's an agricultural property next door, and so potential buyers have to be notified that there's going to be noises, and is that separate, different from this kind of a thing?
That's a similar notice. It's a similar type of notice.
Okay, so those notices are usually in the staff report saying that that the applicant needs to make that notice, and that's why I thought I want to make sure, because there was nothing that said here that the applicant needs to make that notice. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, if it's all that case, then I would treat it just like the agriculture one, but where I would ignore it. But since it wasn't in there, that's why I brought it up. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, though, that these go on the plat, that these are on the plat. In the same note, the very last one, it's got a purple bubble around it. It says parcel B is easement in favor of the city, but then the page previous to it says parcel C is dedicated to the city. But however, B will be maintained by HOA. Is that
Right,
correct?
that's correct. It's correct because the city wants the HOA to maintain the detention basin, but the city needs an easement over it. So parcel B is the detention basin.
Okay, so there's no mix-up between B and C then?
There's not.
Okay. Is the planning staff satisfied with the applicant's response to requests for corrections of open space calculations?
Yes.
Okay. That's it for me then. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for approval of the Ridge Plat A preliminary plat located at approximately 1300 Talus Ridge Boulevard with the findings and conditions as shown in the staff report, with the addition of one condition, subject to a community plan amendment. Noted sheets may be amended by applicant.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now you can go. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 6. This is a public hearing, an update for the Engineering Standard Technical Specifications and Drawings Manual. Turn the time over to Gordon Minor for that presentation.
Okay, so from time to time, as the staff report indicates, from time to time, the standards need to be updated to make clarifications or to just catch up with what's going on in Saratoga Springs. And so these are just a few revisions that we've made. The most substantial, obviously, is, you see a lot of red text with regard to hydrological calculations, storm drainage calculations. There's a methodology that's laid out in there to make it very clear to developers, engineers, how to go about making their calculations for storm drainage detention and so forth. Other than that, there are a couple other items that we've included on there. One of them is a couple criteria for trails, slopes of trails. We found that actually in the Mount Saratoga project where they proposed some trails, and I noticed in the standard there wasn't anything about maximum slopes and how to design those trails. And so I accessed that document that you see in your staff report as what seemed to be a credible document with a logical couple criteria, very basic criteria that we could add to bolster our standards a little bit with regard to trails. And so that's why you see that there, and that was the source of my information. So with that, I'm happy to entertain questions about the proposed changes.
Thank you very much. And I assume you're the applicant, so we can open this up now to public comment.
Okay.
This is a public hearing, so we'll open up public comment on the engineering standard technical specifications and drawings manual changes. All right. And we will close public comment on item number 6 and open it up to the Planning Commission for comment.
I have some question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Commissioner Brush.
So my first question, are we encouraging developers to incorporate low impact development in their development so that we don't have to do as much storm drain and curb and gutter modifications like this?
Good question. As part of our development review process and as part of the, we are asking those questions, that have they considered those? Excuse me. Low impact development is not flood control. So these calculations are about flood control. So even if you do low impact development, that doesn't change these calculations because these are for flood control.
And then my second question, and maybe Commissioner Kilgore could help me out about this because I think he brought it up a few months ago about trail widths differing throughout the city. So is 8 foot going to be the standard going forward in most areas? Is that what I saw? 8 foot trail width in this?
So that's not a proposed change, so I don't have an answer for you relative to that. That isn't what I was considering.
Okay.
All I was doing is adding some
And
slope criteria.
I don't know what this came up on. Maybe somebody else remembers, but this came up a few
I think
months
it had
ago.
to do with
Was it the annexation?
the Ken Evans project.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
Star Haven, yes.
Okay.
There was
So
some
then
discussion.
nothing's being changed here, and we could just assume that it could still differ, or I guess depending on the project.
Whatever that condition was, that remains.
Okay,
I haven't looked at that here.
okay. Okay, that's it.
Commissioner Steele.
Yes, I spent a good part of the afternoon on the telephone with the United States Access Board, and government moves very slowly. And March 11th of 2011, no, March 26th, I think it was, 2011, they started the comment period on trails and shared pathways. it still hasn't been finalized, but it's getting close. And one thing, if it is a shared trail, like along Redwood Road, there's going to be some changes in slope. And so I'm just giving you a heads up, since we don't have the document finalized yet, things could change, but right now they're talking about 5% running slope.
Sure, understood. And you alluded to this or mentioned it specifically if it's a shared trail. So we would have to designate which trails would be ADA accessible. That's not the intent of this criterion. You know, we could have trails all over that were not intended to be ADA type trails, and that's what this standard is about.
Okay.
So when we can have that ADA discussion at a later time about which trails we want to designate that way.
And what is the running grade less than 50% of side slope grade?
Why is that?
What is it? I mean, is it cross grade?
Yes. Yes, and this is all to make it to where a trail doesn't collect water and the water runs down the trail. And that, as I recall, that graphic from that source that I included talked about that. But that's what it's about.
Okay.
We want that trail to drain laterally, not longitudinally.
Okay.
We don't want that trail to become a conveyance of stormwater.
Okay. And that will be an ADA issue too when we get to that.
Yes, it could be.
Okay, thank you.
So those are, I had a question about that. It's where it's talking about the half rule, and it's talking about the grade of these trails, and it's talking about single track. Is that part of this discussion?
No, that's
if the source was talking about single track, that's a side. That's
I got excited about that. I used to ride mountain bikes, so.
The goal here was simply to bolster what we had before, which was nothing.
Okay.
But the half rule does pertain to what you're talking about, I think, right?
To what?
The half rule?
Oh, absolutely, it does pertain.
It's the difference between the 15% grade and the 8%, 7 degrees difference that makes it so that the water will not go down the trail.
Yeah, yes, it absolutely does pertain. I just wasn't thinking, and this wasn't specifically about single tracks.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? Okay.
So, just curious, what was used, so you have the estimates for peak and volumetric runoff before. What was used before, what was used for estimating peak and volumetric runoff before adding this text about the FAA method and the dynamic hydrograph simulation model?
Oh, there are a number of different methods.
Oh, so there was just no standard in the city. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. So we were relying on standard practice in the profession that was subject to some debate.
Okay. So this is good. This is great stuff. Is the 100-year event still the standard? I mean, is that pretty much the case still? Because I was wondering with some of the changes that were happening, and I don't know if there's discussion about whether the legacy 100-year standard is the one to keep pushing forward. Do you know if there's much debate on that?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The return period that you use depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So in Saratoga Springs, the return period for water quality treatment devices is a 5-year event. For flood control, it's a 100-year event. Or the more accurate way of saying it is an event that has a 1% chance of occurring in any one given year.
100-year storm.
Yeah, so when we say 100-year storm, we really say that storm we assume has about a 1% chance of happening in any given year.
So that's still the standard, the basic standard, and
For flood control, yes.
on one of your diagrams, talked about sidewalks. So trails along Redwood Road, and if it's on the west side, it's one thing. If it's on the east side, it's something else. But so I was wondering, are sidewalks the same as trails? Should sidewalks be considered the same as trails in this case? Because sidewalks or trails running along Redwood Road, are they equivalent? Should they be?
I don't know what you mean by equivalent. They serve the same function oftentimes.
Okay.
This wasn't, so by the way, this wasn't, I mean, you're asking a question about the standards at this point, not a question about a proposed change. So I may or may not be perfectly prepared to address the question.
I thought it was. Here it is. Yeah, so on your urban rules and wilderness trails page, the very last note is 12 and it's all in red, so I'm guessing that's new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it says, okay, so all the trails along Redwood Rail, all trails along Redwood Road shall be constructed either of asphalt or concrete in accordance with the following standards. And it says that if it's on the east side, trails on the east side of Redwood Road shall be constructed of asphalt, and trails on the west side should be constructed of concrete. But if we have sidewalks on the east side that are concrete, like along the dental, the dentist's offices and stuff like that. So that's why I was wondering, are sidewalks the same as trails? And if that's the case, what do we do about the concrete that's on the west side, since that's supposed to be asphalt according to this new standard?
I don't know. I don't know about existing conditions out there. The purpose of this was to document the policy that we've been following, with the exception of the examples you're using, I guess.
So I guess going forward, then west side trails and sidewalks will be built of asphalt, and then the east side will be concrete. We don't care about the stuff that's already there then.
Right.
Okay.
The intent of this was to document the policy that the city wants to follow that way.
Okay.
Mind if I can jump in?
Yeah,
with a question?
that was my last question.
What is the logic behind the east asphalt and the west concrete? How did you come
If
to
somebody
that
could, so that's an institutional thing that predates me. If someone could help me, I'd be happy to.
Because I remember, when we put in legacy farms, for example, there was a big debate about concrete versus asphalt, and asphalt won. And that's on the east side. So if I'm a builder and I'm on the west side of Redwood Road, how come I have to put concrete in? It's expensive.
I will explain, and not that I am an expert on it, but the reasoning I was told is that runners like to run on asphalt, not on concrete. But bicyclists and other users, such as wheelchair users and walkers, would rather have the concrete. So therefore, they did one and then the other to satisfy as many people as they could.
I thought the bike lane on Redwood Road was on the east side, in which case you would want concrete on that side. But we're saying it should be asphalt.
Well, no,
Is it on both sides?
no,
It's mixed.
it's asphalt on the east side, and that's for runners. And that's not a bicycle. It can be used as a bicycle path, but people have the option of going over to the concrete.
Okay, so, okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, because there is a bicycle lane on the road, but that's not the bicycle path. Yeah, okay. Oh, so that's what we have both.
So if you're single and you're a bike rider, you're never going to run into a runner.
But you might get another biker.
That would be an accidental way to meet if you actually met that way.
Not be the most pleasant either.
Okay, so I guess then it's to try to accommodate both types of access.
I suppose, and like I say, this is to memorialize the policy that was expressed to me, that the way things are being done. So.
But okay, so then if a office or a developer then comes in and wants to put concrete in for their sidewalks along Redwood Road, it's not something that we have to say no to, right? I mean, if it's an administrative action, or is it?
We're putting it in the standard, so the standard would be pretty hard in that
So it would be a,
yeah.
commercial development going then?
Yes. We have a lot of fields that will one day be something.
I have,
That was the last for me. Thank you.
okay. I do have a question. On, I think it's page 8 towards the top, where it says storm drain facilities consisting of drainage canals, bridges, streets, culverts, storm drain pipelines, and apparent structures shall be designed to convey the anticipated storm water discharge. Looks like we added streets, so can streets be a place for the water to go down? Is that what that's saying, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the revisions that came along, an earlier revision, was to change the underground piping to be designed for the 10-year event. And so that implies that a 100-year event, floodwaters greater than the 10-year event, would be in the street. And that's fine. Actually, we want them there. We don't want to try to get floodwaters in a pipe, and then getting them in a pipe is problematic. If we got floodwaters, we want to get them passed without flooding people.
Any other comments, questions? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'm looking for it.
They don't have one. Okay. I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the amended engineering specifications and standards.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. There you go, Gordon. Good work. All right, let's just jump into this. Let's go to item number 7. This is a work session, North Shore's revised concept plan located north of Old Saratoga Road, west of 2300 West. D.R. Horton is the applicant. We'll turn the time over to Nora Shepard for the presentation.
Sorry.
And thank you for joining us. We'll ask you your name later.
Okay, so the purpose of this work session is really to give you all a heads up and to let you know that in the next month we're going to be to annexation that we've been working on quite some time. We're not really getting into a lot of depth tonight, but we wanted to at least introduce to a revised concept plan is being worked by the applicants, and also to talk about how we get there. So, other than in the staff report, which is a little bit of background information about the fact that there was annexation from Buckland Ranch to as last in 2017 in March. The annexation petition was accepted by City Council, certified by City Council, and then there was an appeal a protest that was about from the city side. So it was heard by the Utah Boundary Commission. Boundary Commission thereby allowing the city to go ahead. So before the annexation actually moves forward and the plat's recorded, where there can be an annexation agreement, the applicant wants some surety of what they want to do. They don't want to necessarily have it all agricultural and then have it come into this unknown rezone. They want an annexation agreement as the annexation that gives them when a parcel comes in and is annexed, it's granted a zone. And you have to figure out what zone it is. So tonight what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the time over to Mark Barton, who is going to explain what their vision is for the parcel. I've discussed this formally with some small group meetings, got some direction. And in the coming weeks, what happens next is in 2 weeks, we'll ask you to formally comment on the revised. What happens with the concept of it necessary. And then next week, we will also be talking to you more about for residential. Working on a little bit internally, actually quite a lot, but it's not quite to the point that we're ready to present it. We're working through those things too, and hopefully 2 weeks we'll have something for you. The way things are scheduled at your April 12th meeting, is to make a recommendation to the city council on no. Don't need to make a recommendation on the it's just a legislative function. This would be a text amendment. So the other thing I put in your notes is that there are a number of processes that has to happen for this project to come to fruition. And we talked about the creation of the next residential zone. And then formally approving residential zone and the annexation and development. What we're trying to do is get those three things to move forward around the middle of April. Bringing fill and some of those things. That's the goal. There are some other things that will have to happen later. Some of the property that's already within this. So they will have to come in and zone that area. That can happen. This first stuff is. They may also be annexing some additional property owners around. Some of the things that we've talked about in the mixed residential are also things that we may want to go back and look at. For example, it's really important for neighborhoods to have sort of a common theme, architecture. I think that that's a good idea for neighborhoods at some point back and that language in our open space section, design section. Right now, we're just trying to of the so wait, you're gonna do it. Here's your little clicker.
Hey Nora, as just to know what we're doing, are we adding 7 and 8 together tonight? Okay, and then if you would go ahead and introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Yep. Good evening, Nora. Thank you. Very good. Planning Commission staff, good evening. Thanks for having us here. I'm Boyd Martin with D.R. Horton Homes, Draper, Utah. I'll let Mike introduce himself.
Mike Hathorn with Michael Baker International, Midvale, Utah.
Isn't it
Good evening.
on the hard drive?
Thumb drive.
USB drive.
So I'm here to talk about the overall vision, the background behind it, what we're trying to do, and Mike is our code expert. Some of you that have been around a long time, I think, Sandra, you know Mike from his LDS church and all the zoning and all the 5 years of effort on getting that entitled. So Mike is an expert at code, and I'm not. So he's here to talk about the code change, why it's necessary, and what we're trying to accomplish with it. This property, let me flip over real quick. Just to orient you really quick, if you look at the bottom middle of the picture, that is your Public Works building. So those of you that know where that's at, that gives you kind of an orientation right there. This property that's all highlighted, most of it is owned by Scott McLaughlin out of Lehigh. And Scott, if you don't know, is the largest mink farmer in the state and the second largest in the country. And Scott owns a lot of ground. His main mink operation here is right over across the street in Lehigh, right off Redwood Road. He's got his rendering plant and a few other things over there. I'm buying some land from Scott now. I've got a large 300-acre piece in Lehigh right next to his plant. And so he approached me and said, hey, I'd like to sell this parcel. But there's a couple things you need to know about, Boyd. One of them is if you don't close by this fall, I'm not going to let you extend the offer, and I'll probably move mink over there. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, because I'm getting surrounded in Lehigh, and I can see what's coming, so I'm building out in Cedar Valley, and I need another place to move mink, so maybe I'll just put it over there. I said, okay, I would like the parcel, and so I'll try my best to get this done as quick as possible. So that deadline ends in November. So if you see us trying to push as fast as we can, just know that that's behind that. The other reason for the intensity and the speed is that we have to bring, most of this is in floodplain. And so for us to get it out of floodplain, I've got to bring in almost 5 feet of fill across the entire parcel. That's 400 and about 60,000 yards. It's a lot of dirt. Now we have a current opportunity to make this work, and one is Ames Construction and Hadco Construction are redoing I-15, and so the window is open in the next few months for them to start trucking in dirt from the I-15 and to fill all that up. I've almost got enough to make it all work. So again, I'm just setting the background as to why is Horton in such a hurry. It's because I've got the dirt available, and I've got to do this for McLaughlin, or he's not going to, he'll just do something else with it and probably put mink on there. So there's a little bit of background, but it's not all McLaughlin's ground. The Revel family, it's hard to see, but they own a parcel in there, and then Doug Nolan of Nolan Excavation, he owns a little parcel in there. The two parcels that are left out at the middle there, right off of 2300 West, the one on the right side is owned by the Catholic Church. We've approached them. They have no desire to sell. And then the one to the left, that family has no desire to sell either. They'd like to just to stay there. So one of the very interesting things about this parcel that got the council excited and staff was the marina that comes in with it, and that's on the far right there. That marina it's been private. It's been McLaughlin's. He's used it over the years. I think to make it really functioning, you'll have to dredge it out. I think it's probably a little shallow. But what we're proposing as a part of this whole development is we give that's 20 acres of land and the marina to the city. I'm paying for it, but I'll donate it, and it's just part of something that Mark Christensen and I have talked about for a while now is, how do we kind of get this through? So let me just click through and give you some of the ideas that we're talking about. Now, we called it North Shore. Some of the city council, we've done 2x2s with, I think, everybody, Nora. I think we've touched, everybody's been there, including the mayor. And I wanted a farm theme, not kind of like legacy farms, but some of the council members were really strong about we want a nautical theme to tie in with the marina. I said, okay, great. I agree with you. I think that would be excellent. So instead of maybe doing all the tractors that we did at Legacy Farms, we'll do maybe some boats, some old boats, if we can get them that'll safe, that kids can play on, that not going to get hurt on. Maybe Michael McComber suggested a big anchor. I thought that's pretty neat. So we're going to try and theme this in a kind of a nautical type of a theme, without being too corny with it. So this is the overall project. You can see the marina up there, and what we're doing is just donating that ground. There's no improvements with it. It's just a straight donation. You can see a civic use, really probably an LDS church up there on the corner, on the top right. And then if you'll, I don't have a pointer. Yep. Thank you. And then if you'll, David, if you'll show them what's that right of way that we're down in the middle for is that 90 feet? Anyway, 180 feet. So right almost in the middle of that project, it runs east to west, and Nora, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a future plan for rail, right? Light rail?
It's the Pony Express corridor,
Okay.
which would include that rail also.
Right. So one of the only ways you're going to get a rail stop right there is if you have extremely high density. That's what UDOT's published. They're not going to give you one unless you have the density. So a parcel I'm looking at in American Fork has like 60 units to the acre, which is really a mid-rise. And UDOT said if American Fork won't change it, it has to be there because they want to stop really bad. You don't have to go that high. What we've proposed here we think is good enough to try and get that stop. But we'll run through it here. It's a total of almost 140 acres. The open space totals 46. You've got 20 over there by the marina, and another 26 spread out throughout the community. I do have a variety of product lines in here. I've got an apartment pod in there. I've got my 3-story alley load townhomes, which I've built all over the valley. You can go. All of this stuff is built. This product line is built right now in Legacy Farms, except for the apartments and the 3-story towns. The rest of that is currently built that you can go see. So flip through there. Just highlights the apartment section, and again, it's right off of that Mountain View corridor, Pony Express, excuse me, and with the hopefully future stop for the rail. Just a sample of some of the larger apartment complex that we would imagine being there right now. 3-story walk-up, it's just a standard apartment. We do have these 3-story towns. They're on the main road there on the right. Do you know what that road that is, Michael? Old Saratoga Road. Those are alley load. I'll show you some product here in a minute. They're very attractive. And that was one of the things that some of the council members, I think McComber, really pushed for that to be built right there. So we're accommodating that. This is my 3-story product. I've built it in South Jordan, Pleasant Grove, Bluffdale, Draper, and it's all done very well.
Alley loaded.
Yes, ma'am, alley loaded. They face each other. They've all got these little limited common areas in the front, so you can put a chair out here and talk to your neighbors, and they have this nice walkway. They come 4-bedroom standard. There's no basement on them, but they're very popular. These are the ones in South Jordan. Then I've got my 2-story towns. These are in Legacy Farms. You can see them over there right now. I'll show you a picture. This is right off the main Dragon Legacy Farms. We've got quite a few of them. Now they turned out really well, very popular. And I'll tell you, we didn't have a lot of investors purchase. There's not. They're mostly, I sign off on every contract, and they're mostly owner occupied by the vast majority. I bet it's probably 5% less. And that's just because of affordability right now. It used to be when I bought my first starter home in Mapleton years ago with my wife, my home was about double my income. These days, the value of the land, the improvements are so high right now that quote-unquote starter homes in Provo that I've got, they're about $340,000, $350,000. That's as low as I can get them. And a lot of these young kids can't afford them. So what we're seeing is a lot of people are moving they're staying in apartments because they just can't afford to get out, unfortunately. And these young folks that would have bought a quote-unquote single-family starter home, they're buying townhomes because that's what they can afford, and they're staying in them longer. They're not just moving out and then turning them into rentals. They're actually living in them for years because that's just what's affordable right now. This is also my alley load townhomes that are in Legacy Farms. I've got my traditional front load townhomes. These do have a basement and a backyard. Interestingly enough, in Legacy Farms, I've got a $25,000 spread between my alley load town and my front load town. And because the front load townhome has a backyard, a little 10 to 15 foot limited common that you can fence in, let your dog run around or let your child, and a basement, I outsell my alley load towns with my front loads 2 to 1. For $30,000 more, 2 people will buy versus 1 versus the alley load. It's just they're just that much more desirable. But these are my traditional, you see them all over. We've been building these for 20 years. Very common, 1,640 square feet, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage, front load town. Very, very popular. I can't keep them in stock. As soon as I release them, I sell them all within usually 2 or 3 days. So, my front load cottage homes, these are single family detached. Again, these right here are going for the 300 to low 300s. This is a farmhouse look, which has been very popular for the last few years. I will add in a few more elevations in this to try and do the North Shore theme, maybe an northeast coast, a couple architectural themes. We have an architect in our office. He works for us. He's in-house, and he's working on some new elevations here to try and tie in the North Shore nautical type of look. So we're trying to tie all that together. Single family, we've got a whole bunch of these in our Legacy Farms. You can just see them here, very, very standard. You see them all through the city right now. Again, a farmhouse theme, which is just very popular right now. So another farmhouse, just different colors. You've seen them all, red, white, and blue, all American. Open space, a couple different things here. We're going to do a very similar clubhouse to what we did in Legacy Farms, but again, instead of the farm look, we have the hay wheel and the barn doors and all that, we're going to put on more of I don't know what you call it, almost a lighthouse type of thing on it. It'll look good. I've seen some rough renderings. We're going to tie it all in again with a nautical theme. We're not doing the farm, it's all nautical, so our clubhouse will show that. I would like to do a large splash pad instead of a pool. You can actually accommodate more people with a big splash pad than you can even with a big pool. A big pool, 500, 600 residents can get overrun really easily. A big splash pad it can actually accommodate that much better. So the cost is about the same because I still have to treat the water. All the equipment is actually the same, and there's more concrete work. So it's not really cost savings. It's truly just a playability type of a thing. So, but we will have a lot of different programming throughout the entire parcel with trails and little pocket parks. Let me show you a couple examples. There's the clubhouse you see in Legacy Farms. Again, it'll be very similar footprint, but a completely different elevation. Large splash pad we'd like to do. These are just from cities around here. You've all seen them. I still will have a lot of these little features in here. Again, these are Legacy Farms, and we tied in everything. We had our steel manufacturer fabricate those willows. We'll have all these little, as you drive through Legacy, you can see the farm theming throughout the entire thing. We're going to do that in this one as well. Worked out really well for us. We're also going to have a little dog park. Not going to be little, but we'll have a dog park in there. Those are just very popular right now, and we get a lot of demand from residents to put them in. So I thought that was funny, Wiggly Field. We're also doing the hammocking. It's big with teenagers. It seems a little boring to me, but they all go hang out at the park and put up their hammocks and just hang out. So we're going to do a hammock park in here. We may do 2 or 3 of them. Just put in poles, and you bring your own hammock and hang out. Whatever they do, hang out and text each other. And not
Is that
talk.
tree a wireless access point?
Yes, it is. It's free Wi-Fi. They'll be right next to each other, but they'll never talk. It'll all be right. This is so fun. Send. So this is in Daybreak. This is their a hammock park. I liked how they rolled the hills with it and put it all over. It's aesthetically pleasing. I think they did a good job, and so I'm not afraid to say I'm going to copy it. They did an excellent job. This is actually one of my planners. This is his backyard, and this is his kids in there, and I thought that looked good too. So we might string up some LED timer lights and try and do some stuff like that as well. We're really big into the Terra Parks. Instead of just programming a swing set and you see them all over, what we've done are Terra Parks, and that's where, I mean, really, if you have children, I've got 5, and I can put up a $10,000 swing set and a water and a pile of sand or dirt, and they're all over it. So we've taken that theme, and you see it in Legacy Farms, and these are some other pictures of Terra Parks, but we just try and use nature and rocks and a couple, we'll show you in here, just some big telephone poles with hills and sand and terrain and grade, and the kids can just have a great time, and they're active. They're out running around and playing and not just staying off the hot slide, you know. Kind of fun. This is ours that we built. We got a few weeds in there, so it's not looking too sharp, but this is what we built in Legacy Farms. This is a mini version of what I'd like to do over here in North Shore. You can see the stepping stones. Just some fun with the natural. These are the big poles we put in. They're really used. We see kids on that all the time. We got the pipes going through. Just kind of fun. So, oh, now the boring stuff, Michael. Anyway, any questions or comments on just the overall theme and the general plan?
I saw a 4-story in there. Is that part of the plan too?
No.
Okay.
That was just a sample of we like the look of it.
Okay.
Most apartments are 3, and I'd imagine these would stay 3 too.
Okay.
I have to ask why you didn't include any alley-loaded cottages in this plan. You chose all the alley-loaded towns, but no alley-loaded cottages.
I lost money on the alley-loaded cottages.
Really?
They look great, and I love them. I really do. They're some of my favorite, but they're expensive to build, and they just weren't as profitable as maybe the other plans. The ones we have in Legacy Farms are at the entrance, so I dolled them up, and I want them to look great, and I think we accomplished that. I'm very proud of them.
I live in one.
Oh, do you really?
It's actually great.
Oh,
yeah.
well, congratulations. Thank you. I didn't know that. I think they look fantastic. We use them in our advertising all the time. But the price point I was able to charge for it, and I'm just being open, and what it cost me to build, there wasn't that much into it for me. So, and they fit a really good purpose there, because as you drive in, they pop.
Right.
They look great.
Yeah.
Since you live there, I will admit I screwed up. Don't ever put the skate park at your entrance.
We're across from the skate park, actually, and I don't really notice it too much. Maybe complaints from people, but they're probably not the people who actually live in those townhomes, or in those
Were you
cottages.
there last summer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Been there
So it
just
wasn't,
over a year and a half.
because we had, when we first opened it, we had a lot of the high school kids that would ditch school, come and open their, crank their music and skate, and we had a lot of complaints.
Yeah,
So
that still happens. It doesn't bother me too much. The fountain got bubbled once. That was a huge source of contention. They accused the skate park hoodlums of doing that, so I don't know. But
okay.
one of the other comments I had was, you said there was going to be a clubhouse, but for this amount of the number of units you're putting in here, it seems like you might want to have 2 or possibly 3. I mean, this is, what, double, triple the size of Legacy Farms, and there's only 1 there.
Oh, I think it's if you include Leisure Villas, I think Legacy Farms was like 950 total, and this one is, oh my gosh, 1150, so it's not too far off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
I wanted to comment. I think the nautical theme is terrific.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks.
Very good, too.
I remember years ago when the city was just like 5 years old or whatever, they were talking about, the city was talking about putting lighthouses, real lighthouses on the lake, just to distinguish Saratoga Springs from all the other communities around the lake. We never did that. Probably financially, good reason not to, but but to have a neighborhood that is on the lake that kind of carries that old theme through, I think that's just great for Saratoga Springs. I actually think, despite the fact that we do have farms, and Legacy Farms makes sense because of our history here, I do think that going forward, the nautical theme is maybe the kind of thing that would draw tourism once we develop those kinds of facilities. And by you dedicating that marina to the city, I think that's just terrific. But yeah, I really like, I went to college on the East Coast, and so to Connecticut, in fact, and
Oh, wow.
Connecticut towns like Mystic, for example.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how translatable that is maybe to Saratoga Springs, but that kind of imagery and the kind of business that those kinds of towns could bring, I think, is a potential future for Saratoga Springs as well. So thank you for listening to the City Council and going with that theme.
Yeah, all those elements and positive things you just recommend is what they did as well. We're on board. I'm excited when we come back to show you. We're working on renderings now and ideas and thoughts, and we're excited to show them to you and see if we can, again, make it seem authentic and not corny, and that's a tough balance, because you could make it corny really easy and doesn't seem, authentic. But we've got some really sharp folks, and I think we'll get there.
What does the city intend on doing with the marina?
That's an excellent question. I think the vision right now is that certainly the city in the future would like to dredge it and have it as a real marina at some point. There's also other land there that could be, part of our park system, our regional park system. If we have the land that's donated to us and we own it, we can use that to leverage grant funding that would then help us develop the area and possibly do the dredging and things like that. So that's why Mark, the city manager, really likes the idea of just getting the land, so that then we can put that up as our match when we go to apply for funding. So that's kind of the big vision of how it would work. It's going to take some time, years perhaps, but that's the thought. And there's also space there that could be, little commercial, little, like your wife's candy store or something like that. And we could potentially, not necessarily sell, but it could happen. And there are also, one of the things that the North Shore project is talking perhaps about is maybe some flex space on the first floor of some of the townhomes that could be a little commercial storefront. There's some parking and other associated issues that may need to be addressed with that, but there's, as things move forward and the concept is developed more, some of those things will certainly come through.
Are you planning on doing water access there too?
Yes, there's already a boat ramp, right? And that will continue to be there. The trail in that location will continue to be there. So it's important that we maintain those things.
Is there a general plan does the general plan address the annex property?
Yeah.
The general plan has some where we want to annex?
Yes.
And if so, then what zoning did we have on the general plan for that area?
I'd have to, I would have to look it up. I think it's,
Even to consider it, we had to have it on that plan.
That's right.
It's in our general plan.
What the general plan recommends as far as zoning goes.
On the land use map. Some of it's, the marina itself is mixed waterfront and a little bit of this property. And then, what does the rest of it show? Medium density, there's a little neighborhood commercial. Yeah, mostly medium density.
And medium commercial.
I'm sorry?
On the commercial and economic development framework map, it shows that as low commercial.
Yeah, there's some commercial that's shown on the general plan map.
Is the mix, what was the new zone? What was the new zone, the proposed zone?
Mixed residential.
Oh, okay, it's mixed residential.
Right.
It doesn't include commercial and.
Well, I think we're going to, they might not be planning on doing much commercial, but because this is a zone that could apply in the future, and we even think in this area, certainly some kinds of commercial uses would probably be appropriate. Daycare, things that really generally support a neighborhood. Our intention is to, in the mixed residential zone, to try to incorporate it into all of our use tables, like all of our other zones. And so the kinds of uses that are allowed in other kinds of residential areas as conditional uses, we would probably kind of carry through with that they could be conditional uses or permitted uses in some instances.
Would the mixed water use overlay make sense in this development?
We talked about that, and that's not the plan at this point in time. That's not necessarily their proposal.
I can go. Nora, who's going to pay, I know they're dedicating the land, and usually when that's what developers normally do, is dedicate some of the land for public use. So that's not unusual. But usually, don't developers also improve it to a certain point?
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I think in this case, the donation of land, they don't intend to count that necessarily toward their required open space requirement. So they're going to continue to do 20% or however much open space they're proposing within their neighborhood. So they don't need that open space, and because they don't need it, they don't feel like there's a negotiation that is happening or has happened that says that the plan at this point is for them just to donate it to the city.
Okay.
It's all part of the annexation negotiation.
When we were talking about the general plan, it says in our objectives for residential areas, locate new multifamily and increased density housing in appropriate areas. Provide for higher density housing where appropriate in walkable, mixed-use areas near shopping, offices, healthcare, and transportation centers. Well, we got transportation center if you develop that as a transportation center or leave it where it can be in the future. But I really feel like that we need some commercial to support that many units. Kind of putting them out in the middle of nowhere. And you have others on the, that have just been annexed, and that's going to be all commercial. So, or all residential, and so we really do need some commercial. And I know you don't build commercial, but you can always designate it and have someone else come in and build it. And the one thing I had mentioned to Nora, and Nora, did you get my email with the Beaverton round?
I did, but quite honestly, I didn't have time to really look at it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think you know about Beaverton round, don't you, Michael?
I don't.
Okay, it's in Portland, and it's on the transit line. And when I was there, it was kind of ugly, but it did what it was supposed to. The new pictures of it are really quite nice. And what they did is they put apartments on the upper stories, and the first story was commercial. So that if you were riding a train into Portland or from Portland, from Beaverton, you have that coffee shop or a place where you can pick up a cup of coffee, probably a Starbucks, a gym, or two that I know of that are in there, and then they honestly can walk down the steps or on the elevator right out to the train stop. And that has been pretty popular there. And I know we've talked about commercial inside of a community that sometimes it doesn't really lend itself to be successful. But when you have that transit area, then it becomes possible and probably would be an asset to your community as well as to our community. So I'm throwing that out so you can take a look at it. Also, if there's going to be a stop there, you're going to have to provide some parking. And I don't know if the 90 feet will give that or not. It's 100.
The right-of-way is 180 feet wide.
Okay.
Isn't there also a medical center
On the east.
on that? Wasn't there? I can't remember which one it was. If it was IHC or U of U, wasn't there a medical center that was just south of?
Beaverton?
No, I'm talking about
The underpass.
No,
We
that's,
talked about the
that's
deer.
northwest of this area.
Oh, yeah, it's a ways. Oh, it's a long ways.
Over the shore, north of the Utah.
Yeah, you're talking about the area that's actually in the same vicinity as Smith's.
This will be on the other side of the regional sports park, right?
Right.
A Patriot Park. It'll be kind of on the,
This will be
Okay,
northeast
corner.
of that. So this is on the
Yeah,
north side of the lake.
it's across the river.
Okay, that's right.
okay.
Yeah, it's on the other
It
side.
is like right on the shoreline, and if you go further east, you're gonna hit that train track that's over there. Quite a bit.
And from being an end user some time ago of working with zoning and whatnot, I have a suggestion to make on the name of the zoning. Mixed residential really is, if you were running through our codes and in our code, you know, the different types, and you'd look at mixed residential, you'd think, okay, I can't put commercial there and go on. And I'd like to see this maybe be called, I don't know what your minimum acreage is now for this. Okay, planned community 50 to 500. And I think that says it all right there.
It'll be multiple uses. It might incorporate commercial.
Yep, and so I would suggest that to staff. I hope they would concur. Oh, let's see, how wide are your alleys?
26 feet.
Very good. Oh, when you come back, could you give us a map that is kind of colored like this one? And with a key to tell us where the different products are going to go,
Yeah.
colored-wise, because it's hard to tell on that.
Sure, we'll do that.
The whole
Looking at
purpose of that map was really just to show you kind of where it was and also to show you what's in and out of the city and what needs to be rezoned. So that wasn't really intended to be a
I wanted to show
detailed project
them,
map.
I wanted to show them the example, though, so,
Okay.
because I know you did that for Legacy Farms, and it makes it a whole lot easier when you're back and forth and trying to look at it.
Who
I
put that
agree.
map together?
This one?
The colored one
I did.
that's in our packet. Okay, so really, that's not what your proposal is then?
In general, it is, but the
Okay.
purpose of it was to show,
And in that, the one back there, you highlighted the different ones, but.
yeah, it's not in their presentation.
This one's
Okay.
more artistic, but to Sandra's point, having one that's
Like that, but.
that has contrasting colors for each product.
Right,
would be-
it shows the densities of those. Because if I'm looking at that, that wasn't in our packet. I can kind of see the density that is adjacent to the existing properties, and I'm kind of want to be sensitive to the people that are there too. But it looks like on this one that we do have, there's roads that already go right up to that property, anticipating that one day they'll want to sell.
Yeah.
Which maybe they will, but,
And part of that's just required in standard and good engineering.
right.
We're not trying to
Back
force
to you,
them.
Commissioner Steele.
When I have more of that to look at, then you'll probably have a lot more comments from me, but not tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a real high-level view in our packet, so.
We did address some of the commercials. We talked with a few of the council members on that's why we did the 3 stories on that old Saratoga Road, because that bottom, that main level where you have your garage, it has a flex room in it. And it can be a bedroom, it can be a massage studio, it can be a counting, tax place. That main floor is a flex spot, and you can do a lot of things with it.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. I was on the phone all afternoon with the Access Board and meeting the challenge in Denver, because I knew you were planning on this. I'd been told that. And have you considered the fact that you're going to have to follow the ADA standards for that, since you'll have the public coming in? And it may mean a bathroom, an accessible bathroom?
There's a bathroom there, and
And
it has a 3.0 door.
Okay, and,
We can add the necessary,
okay. And the fact that you're going to have it perfectly, or, just almost flat. You can't have step.
Sure.
Step. And then you'll also need extra parking for that. And then that will include, as soon as you provide the extra parking, then you have to provide a van space. So
maybe we won't do that.
Well, I wanted you to know that going in, because I was unclear on whether it would fall under ADA, and they told me,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Maybe we won't. That's all we were considering of any type of commercial. We don't do it. I don't have it planned here. Some of the council members thought that in the 20 acres of the harbor property, that may be a spot for paddleboard rentals and snow cone shack, and they had some really interesting ideas that maybe come of it, but it's not me.
I really think along the transportation corridor would be a good place to put some commercial. And as I say, I know you don't do that. Now, people can still do home occupations per our code in those townhomes, and I'm sure many of them will. But as far as opening it up to commercial in the public, or putting a sandwich shop in, or
Food trucks, area for food trucks or something.
it's going to, it will cause you extra problems. And so, but I'd like to see something set aside along the transportation corridor that would address the high-density housing along with the commercial. I think that's a good marriage, if we can figure out where they're going to put the stop.
Mike, I have a question for you. Since you're the code expert, would you go over this slide a little bit for us? Because it wasn't really in our packet. We want to know more about the mixed residential zone, and what is the difference between that and any of the current zone products that the city provides, and why do you need this new zone?
That's a great question. I'm glad. That's actually a perfect segue for the discussion. When the opportunity for this property came about, one of the things, and please, Boyd and Chriselle, correct me if I'm wrong or if I misspeak, but as things began to materialize, there was a very strong desire to want to look at the opportunity of replicating the type of programming that was done in Legacy Farms. Legacy Farms has been exceedingly successful and has been very positively received in the city, within the market, the residential market. And the opportunity of being able to assemble a neighborhood and program it for multiple housing types was something that appealed tremendously to D.R. Horton. So one of the first steps that we took as a group was to analyze the current zoning to see if there was any zoning on the books that would give the opportunity to create a neighborhood that had a diverse range of housing. You're not going to like hearing this, but the one that does it and can do it is the planned community zone. And that was our first pursuit, was to do the planned community zone, because all of the programming associated with the planned community zone that was done for Legacy Farms could be simply brought over. Now there's hurdles with that, obviously, one of them being a 500-acre minimum, another one being an internal city dislike for the planned community zone. And so we then had to look at other options. It was suggested to us to look at the mixed-use waterfront as well as the mixed-use zoning, and both had drawbacks to making it work. What you're seeing on the screen, we've got a set of 3 slides here, and what we did is we took the product that is inside Legacy Farms and we compared it to, in this instance, the mixed-use zone, to see if any of these products could be built using the mixed-use zone. So, and all of the comments that you see in the boxes under the mixed-use zone are the problems associated with the application of the mixed-use zone. We did a similar exercise to the mixed waterfront. We eliminated the mixed waterfront immediately because the way that the mixed waterfront is written, it provides you density opportunities as you bring in non-residential uses, and that's counterproductive to the programming that D.R. Horton incorporates in their communities. And so it was extremely problematic to deal with the mixed waterfront. Now with the mixed use zone, the only product that really worked in the mixed use zone was the commercial. All of the other, well, and then the 8,000 square foot lots. Everything else would have required rewrites, exceptions, text amendments, so on and so forth, to utilize the mixed use zone for the purposes of creating a community that would deliver a diversity of housing types. So then the discussion began to molt into what can be done to address that, but do it in a fashion that it's addressing other needs in the city, not just D.R. Horton's situation, because you have a zoning that you have to deal with in perpetuity in the planned communities, with the planned community zone, that doesn't apply to anything else, but has some merit by which it could deliver positive results. And so the effort was undertaken to begin that process of drafting a mixed residential zone that would allow for the type of programming, again, from a D.R. Horton perspective, the type of programming that Legacy Farms has in terms of housing, in terms of open space, in terms of character and theme, and deliver that as a packaged product. And we have worked collaboratively with the planning staff to do that. I believe we are on draft 10 of that mixed residential zone. So it has gone through multiple iterations to continue to tweak and fine tune based on the back and forth that we've had at a staff level. And that's continuing. We're not, Nora alluded to that. That's continuing still with the objective and goal of having a draft that both D.R. Horton and staff are comfortable in providing to you for your comments.
Could I request a slide?
Yes.
First of all, they're a little bit difficult to read, the MU zone parts for us.
Yeah.
We'd like to see those in our packet. Second thing, these show a delta between Legacy Farms and the proposed mixed residential zone, right? Is that what it's showing? What is the mix?
What this is showing, so what these are actually showing are the product, the fact that they are allowed in Legacy Farms, that's what the X's are.
Right.
And then the discrepancy between the ability to do those product using the mixed use zone.
Okay. So what I'd like to see on there would be great, since you're the code expert, is show us the difference between the most closely related zoning product that we have today and what is proposed in the mixed residential zone. So we can see, it has this setback, it has this envelope, this size. What do you have today on the code, and what are you asking for? It would be good to see that difference.
Isn't that what this is?
No, this more like is showing what's approved in Legacy Farms.
Yeah, this was
because Legacy Farms was planned community, which we don't allow anymore.
Right.
Therefore, the closest to what we have today is mixed use.
That's what was recommended to us to consider.
Okay.
And so this is basically
If that's not the mixed residential zone.
You we're asking for.
That is mixed use, not mixed residential.
That's why they're asking
Okay.
for mixed
That's right.
residential, because
Gotcha.
it'll allow them to do all of these things that the mixed use doesn't.
I just really want to read those bullets.
Yeah.
I bet
Right.
excited
They're
about the
tiny.
Well, those could very easily be, I mean, the staff has
Yeah, we have
these
those.
already.
You could
Those
even
can
send them
be,
to us and we'll see it on our,
yeah.
So, to build on a little bit what Michael said, they have drafted sort of a standalone section that says mixed residential. And it kind of starts from the very beginning, you know, purpose, all that kind of stuff, and has separate separate requirements for a lot of different things. And so what my job is to figure out how to incorporate that into our existing code and not have a whole new chapter, but actually make it one of the residential uses. So it would be included, it would be another column in the residential tables for all of the standards and also for the uses. And then our code is a little bit schizophrenic in that as we've added these zones, they've been handled very differently. For example, the mixed use zone is a whole separate chapter, period. It's not even in where all the other zone districts are. The mixed waterfront zone is kind of an add-on onto in the district chapter. So it's sort of all over the map. So what we plan to do is try to remove redundancy, so when we can apply to our existing standards, that we will, rather than reinvent the wheel for this zone. But we will have a separate narrative for the mixed residential zone with standards that may be above and beyond what we see in some of the other zones. So it's kind of like the way we dealt with mixed waterfront in the code. And I know you guys, I mean, you'll go back and take a look at it. And so that's what I've been working on. Some of what is being proposed by the applicant right now is, quite frankly, more detail than we really necessarily want for a zone. And they're welcome to do that in their annexation agreement and in their what's being called a neighborhood plan. But we don't necessarily want to legislate all those little details. What we are looking at is a couple things. We don't want to recreate the wheel and have all new everything for this new zone, because then that just makes more work for us and for everyone else who's trying to use the zone. And we've taken a look at Legacy Farms. Legacy Farms is incredibly staff intensive. And we really don't want to do that again. We like the product, but it takes so much staff time for every single building that's built out there. We don't want to have to do that. So we want to lay down the concepts, but then the developer can kind of propose the more detailed stuff, and we wouldn't necessarily be. So that's it's a sort of a balancing act, and we will probably propose some things that they're not wild about, and we talked about that, and that's fine. We'll indicate why we did what they did, and they'll indicate why they want what they want, and we'll have to make those decisions. And hopefully, at the next meeting, what we'll do is present you with some drafts, and then some issues for discussion on specific things where we can't come to agreement on.
So Mike, from what you understand right now with what's proposed with the mixed residential zone, do all of your concerns get resolved with that new zoning?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the goal.
We made certain that it would do that. I mean, that was the design there, and it's really the thing that you need to remember is when you're trying to write a zoning code that will encapsulate the ability to deliver multiple types of housing, it's a very tricky animal, which was part of the problem with the existing zoning, is the bandwidth associated with each residential zone in the city only allows you so much room to do things. And we were trying to, one, capture what the programming that was being considered by D.R. Horton, but secondly, having the, and you'll see this when the draft comes forward, is having the opportunity to set lot standards that will allow for other products to come forward as the market ebbs and flows. So the burden is on the lot standards, and having a multitude of lot standards that fit into this ability to paint this portrait of product that is married to the different lot types.
So you can react to the market, but not have to go back to the city.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add that I think is extremely important as it pertains to the history that we have behind us now as it pertains to Legacy Farms. Part of the reason that the staff demands are so rigorous was, if you take yourself back to that point in time, we were talking about concepts that everyone was kind of going, I don't know, this is kind of scary. And so the burden was placed on both sides to, I guess, over-exact the flesh associated with the approvals. We have that behind us to the point, to Nora's point, of being able to say, okay, we understand how this stuff comes together, and we don't need to burden staff with all of the minute details that Legacy Farms carries right now, because we have the means by which we will be able to bring forward, based on the way that it's written now within the neighborhood plan. There's a requirement called a character and theme plan, which will allow D.R. Horton to say, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And the understanding is there because we have precedent now, something that we didn't have when we were going through the process with Legacy Farms. We can go out and drive the streets and go, oh, okay, this is what a rear load townhome is. This is what a front load cottage is, and how those pieces actually fit together. We have that as a reference point as it will pertain to the mixed residential zone that will come forward. So that'll be helpful.
And we also want to make the zone so other developers can do the same thing. I mean, we want to provide flexibility to allow creativity in various different housing types. And other people may have some other ideas. And so we want to allow for that flexibility, but we want them all to come forward with a character and theming plan. Whatever that might be for them, they need to come forward and we'll, approve it as part of the
It's part of the
process.
vetting, yeah.
I like everything you've said. That Legacy Farm. A lot of residents are complaining about density and such, unless it's off some far away from where they are.
Yeah.
Which is, but as planning commissioners, we have the responsibility that those densities are aware of the transportation. I appreciate the fact that you know what you want, but then you're also inviting the city or you're working together with the city. Having said that, so I didn't like the community with all the exceptions that were in there, setbacks and all those other things, which most people consider to be. You have higher density homes. Some of the setbacks that we had in the code for a standard home residence may not apply. I understand that, but it was just all the exceptions and things like that. So I hope you take into account that it doesn't stray too far from the code as far as things like fencing. The exceptions are necessary if you're on a transportation. I understand that, but that's just one of the things where just exception after exception after exception. That was one of the reasons I didn't like the time. Other reasons why the city had in mind that we don't create a different need or basically the type.
Yeah.
The other thing I ask is that the reason why I asked about the general plan is I thought about having is an advisory document, so we don't have to go exactly by the general plan. But you don't do commercial very much, or you don't do commercial, therefore, it's like a hammer is going to find a solution. If you're a hammer in this area, problem that you come out, it's kind of a where you tend to propose the things that make farms work, which is fine. But again, as a plan commission, we want the commercial. As one of the things that was identified, the reason why we came up with the mixed waterfront, or
Mixed waterfront.
Yeah, mixed waterfront, is because one of the or one unique feature of Saratoga Springs, water, we have the lake, and yet, especially in the early, it's those areas were sold, developed to residential. So we have very few areas left where we can do other things that make the city really stand out and different and possibly attract, and that's where I feel that for listen to the vision plan, our vision to our plan in those areas, so that we do save some of those areas. All that's very few left in order to try to execute on them. So again, I totally, and it's great to have a successful product. What you're doing is like this microcosm with all the different types of products with also great. We still have to look at the commercial aspect, and that's one of the things. Otherwise, I think what you
Any other feedback from the planning commission or city staff?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think us as staff, I think we're on the right road with this. It's a kind of a zone I think that we need in the city. Obviously, what they would like to do now can't be addressed by any zone that we have. There are some bumps, obviously we're working those out, but ultimately like to come up with some code that, will address all the bulk area requirements. Obviously, and the beauty of it is that you have to have 50 acres, so you're going to have some sort of master plan for that 50 acres when they come to the city and say, we want to rezone this property to mixed residential, here's what we're going to do, and that concept plan or neighborhood plan, whatever we're going to call it, is going to be tied to an agreement of some sort. And so we're going to be able to have that vision long-term to say, okay, do we like this or do we not? The city's not obligated to approve it, whatever's presented to them. If the city doesn't like it, the city's going to say no. So we have total and complete control to say that's what we want or this is not what we want. And we want to be able to get this zone drafted up where we can just basically plot this zone anywhere. And of course, then each individual application is going to come in with its own, again, unique architecture. If you say somebody comes in north of Walgreens here, you're not going to do a North Shore themed behind Walgreens. It's going to be some different element. Obviously, the North Shore concept is appropriate there at the north end of the lake. And so that's the beauty of it. Each one's going to be unique, but we're going to have these set standards that we're going to be able to put in place, and then tie these in with the requirements that come in under the development agreement of this is the architecture, this is our concept plan, this is where our open space elements are. And so we think we're on the right road here.
Well, it's beating a dead horse, but I think the city has always been in control, more or less, for all the development that occurred in the past, and yet we don't have what we're looking for as far as that vision goes. And so, I know we're in charge, but, it's sometimes whatever the exigencies are, we still don't have what we don't have that vision in place. Or no, we have the vision in place, but we don't have the actual execution of it. So I'm just trying to remind that we have very little left. And so let's just remember, keep that in mind.
Hey, Boyd, one last question. What do you need at a minimum from the city so that you feel comfortable enough to move forward with an offer or whatever?
Minimum
or is that
density?
A strategy you don't want to divulge?
Minimum density?
No.
Is that what you mean? I'm sorry?
I'm talking about what do you need in order to be able to make the deal with the
Oh, yeah, okay. I just need a guarantee of basically density and product type. I mean, it can move around a little bit and we can massage it like we do, but because price is always tied to density, it just is, I just have to have a guarantee that I can get this, some type of certainty.
And is that an overall density for the project? or
Yes.
What's
And
your
they're only
target?
talking about 10 units per acre, a little bit less.
So that's your target?
Yes.
10 units per acre?
Yeah.
All inclusive with the open space and,
Yeah.
okay, with the concentrated density around the potential, what's going to drive the decision whether that transportation goes through or not,
Your guess is as good as mine.
right?
Certainly, if there's density there, that will help. But as you may be aware with what's going on with the legislature, they're really relooking at UTA and how it functions and everything else. Apparently, there's also some private folks out there that are looking at some big picture transit items. It may short-term be more of a BRT and then, or a bus rapid transit, and then eventually perhaps it could turn into light rail. There are a lot of places that do that. They put in the infrastructure in the area and just run buses on it until people get it, until it's dense enough to put in some kind of a rail. So we're hopeful that this plan will help drive where that goes.
How does Prop 8 jive with 10 units per acre?
Well, that's a good question, and I quite frankly can't answer it. I think that that's something that Kevin and our legal counsel and the city manager will need to delve into more.
From what I understand, they are tracking it,
Oh, we're tracking it, yeah.
density.
We're tracking
We'd
all the
like to
units that
see
are
some
being built.
dashboard up here sometime, see where we're heading.
Dashboard.
So we can make a
Excellent.
decision right over there,
Okay, that's a good idea.
and how this decision will affect that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we helped you at all?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Very good comments.
All right, so if, I'd love to see this presentation, if we can get that emailed to us or put in our Dropbox, that would be great, Nora.
Yeah, I can do that. I sent it to Sandy, so I will do that
Okay.
for you guys.
It's not in the main packet, so.
Yeah, I will, I'll get that to you probably Monday, maybe tomorrow.
Great. Well, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Right. Okay. I see no reason to take a break for what's left. So has everybody had an opportunity to see the minutes from February 22nd?
Yes.
Any comments? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting taking place on February 22nd, 2018.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Reports of action. I guess I had one question about, we had a discussion at the city council about, what was it? We had a discussion in our meeting, the slope of a flat roof.
Oh,
Just want to know the status of that.
Yeah, there's the Nora's project, the Fairway Townhomes, if you tuned in.
Shut your mouth.
If you tuned in, she spoke enough about it the other night, so I'll talk. If you tuned in the other night, obviously there was discussion. The way the code is written, if you read it in black and white, you can have what appears to be a flat roof, but it may have a quarter-inch slope, and technically that is a slope. I've actually got a text drafted up right now. We're going to review in DRC on Monday to at least put in a minimum, at least get a discussion going anyway. I think that was kind of the direction the council wanted, to have a minimum slope or pitch.
So if you don't read it black and white, then there's some other interpretation?
Well,
or?
they, quite frankly, they feel like the plain language of the code does in fact require more of a pitched roof, because there's more than one section that talks about pitch. So it's arguable about what the plain language of the code says.
so that's the gray one. The black and white one is,
Well,
Oh, no, the black and white part was from our own lawyer.
they feel that it
That's
is
what he
black
did.
and white, but not necessarily.
The applicant.
No, the city council feels like it already says, it says in other sections that it needs to be a true pitched roof. And they are prepared to make findings they were prepared to make findings for denial. But what they did is they gave the applicant the opportunity to come back and try to address the issue. So it was postponed or continued to a date uncertain to let the applicant respond to what their comments were. But they made it pretty clear that they would not approve it with the roof lines the way they are.
Is there any reason to believe the developer will now just kind of walk away from the product?
I don't think they'll walk away. I don't know what they're going to do, quite frankly.
I think they're pretty heavily invested at this point, so it's worth their time and what money they spent to either potentially, redraw some architectural. I mean, if they come in with something, the council liked everything outside of the structures. They had no problem with that. They said it looked great. Their issue was the structures themselves.
Yeah.
And so they could come back with something on that exact same footprint,
Their product.
different style, that what they were kind of led to say, this is what we're looking for, come back and probably be just fine.
It won't come back to us, though, as I heard it.
That's correct. No, it won't, unless they, totally go away and then somebody else comes in. But no, that's the reason they continued it, so that they wouldn't have to pay a new fee, they wouldn't have to go through all the other reviews and processes that they've already gone through with the flatter roofs. And there was also concern about the homeowners association and the architectural review committee in Saratoga Springs, and that they aren't one and the same, and that the HOA felt that the letter supporting the design from the architectural committee was in violation of the CC&Rs. That's also debatable. Depending on what part of the CC&Rs you look at, it actually provides pretty little guidance in terms of multifamily. But, so they really want also for the applicant to go back and work with the homeowners association.
All right, thank you. Commission comments?
Well, is this the time to talk about?
I think it is.
Okay. Unfortunately, and I don't know how many people know this, would you like to tell us what your future is?
I will be leaving. The next meeting will be my last meeting. I've accepted a job opportunity out of state, so I'll unfortunately be leaving. Thank you.
Good job, Barbara.
A really great opportunity, or else I wouldn't have considered it. This community means a lot to me, so I'm disappointed to leave, but
Congratulations.
it'll be good. Thank you. Unfortunately, it leaves you with a vacancy.
We tried to keep her, but she turned us down.
Do we have applicants because we'll have two.
Yeah, the notice is out now on the city webpage. I don't know if it's right on the main page or not, but if you go under your planning commission section, there is a notice there. I do have one so far. I don't know, they're not all coming to me. They're being forwarded from when HR gets them, but we do have one already, which I think actually came in prior to it actually formally being posted.
We are also losing Kara. Kara Knighton has taken another job as well.
This is the planner too.
Our planner too.
Yeah, so I know, it's like.
You try to shift me over
You
to
have
that.
to do a little less employee development. Okay?
So we've lost our planner 1, we're losing our planner 2, losing our planning commissioner.
We lost an engineer.
Y'all got to stay.
Yeah.
Well,
just kidding.
with her news, and we had been discussing holding our meetings at 6 rather than 6.
Everybody's thrilled I'm leaving now because they can start a half an hour earlier.
No, we're not thrilled. we were quite content.
We arranged for this new job for you so we could move the meeting to 6?
There are some strings behind the scenes.
But we'd like to start the ball rolling so that anybody that applies for the seat on the planning commission knows that we want to start meeting at 6. And if that needs to be a motion, or do we need to make a motion to have you find out what we need to do? What does our legal?
They made it sound so easy last time.
Could we get that? And since we're doing that, it could be a pending, and then you can at least ask or tell the applicants what time, because some of them may not be able to make it.
That could be through the.
Yeah, that's the reason we want to get the ball rolling now.
That's the consensus of the remaining.
Yes.
Yes.
We've discussed it.
I was the only
Briefly.
holdout.
How about city staff? Are you guys okay with that? I mean, you have to stay around for all this extra time, right?
Council is now starting.
Get UTA bus service to the south end of the city and we can make it at 5. Okay, so you've got that? You got that, Bob?
And we can get it as an agenda item next time.
All right.
You have to adopt the agenda as
Okay.
a schedule anyway. So it depends hours.
Well, I guess public notices have already been out for some of the other
How far out are you on public?
10 days in advance?
Just for the next planning
And
commission.
then we get 3 weeks off.
You're looking at April, I mean, go through the interview process and tell the individuals that, we can still.
Okay. Right.
So you're saying this has to be noticed and put on the agenda?
It has to be on the agenda, not a formal publication in the newspaper. It has to be published on at least 24 hours.
Ready made public notice next.
And she's asked,
Public notices, they have to go mail it out, and post it in the paper, yes, those go out tomorrow.
Okay.
For the next planning.
but then, the meeting in April is 3 weeks from the meeting, the last meeting in March.
Yes. And we could possibly do a work session that starts at 6. I don't know. We'll talk internally about that a little bit.
So the next steps are, just to clarify,
Get it on the agenda.
We'll set on the next agenda.
okay. Deal. Director's report. Without objection, we adjourn.
Well, I wish I had known this sooner. I just ditched a lot of boxes after Christmas.
Good stuff? Oh, no.